In the late 16th century, England entered the race for overseas expansion at a time when much of the New World was already claimed by Spain. This rivalry was not merely geographic, but political and economic, shaped by competition over trade routes, resources, and influence. Unlike Spain, England lacked established colonies in North America and approached colonization cautiously, relying on exploration, private funding, and limited royal support. One of the central figures in these early efforts was Sir Walter Raleigh. Acting under a royal charter granted by Queen Elizabeth I, Raleigh sponsored expeditions aimed at establishing an English presence along the Atlantic coast of North America. It is important to note that Raleigh himself never traveled to Roanoke. His role was financial and organizational rather than direct leadership on the ground. Roanoke Island was selected for strategic reasons. Located off the coast of present-day North Carolina, it offered access to inland waterways and appeared suitable as a temporary base for further exploration. However, its location also presented challenges, including shallow waters, limited natural defenses, and dependence on supply lines from England. The first English expeditions in 1584 and 1585 were exploratory in nature. They provided valuable information about the land, climate, and local populations, but also revealed serious difficulties. Shortages of food, unfamiliar terrain, and internal disagreements weakened the settlements. These early failures highlighted how fragile England's colonial ambitions were at this stage. Initial contact with local Native American tribes was complex and varied. Some interactions involved cooperation and trade, while others were marked by misunderstanding and tension. Historical records show neither consistent harmony nor constant conflict, but a relationship shaped by caution on both sides. These early attempts did not establish a lasting colony, yet they laid the groundwork for what would later become the Roanoke settlement, carrying with them both hope and unresolved challenges. In 1587, England made a renewed attempt to establish a permanent settlement in North America. This time, the expedition to Roanoke Island was different from earlier ventures. It was not designed solely for exploration or military presence, but for long-term habitation. Approximately 115 settlers arrived, including men, women, and children, reflecting a clear intention to build a lasting community. Governor John White was appointed to lead the colony. Unlike previous leaders, White had experience with the region and its peoples, having participated in earlier expeditions. His role combined governance, diplomacy, and survival planning, all under difficult and uncertain conditions. The settlers brought with them limited supplies, tools, and provisions, relying heavily on future resupply from England. One of the most historically documented moments of this settlement was the birth of Virginia Dare, John White's granddaughter. Born on Roanoke Island, she is recognized as the first English child born in the New World. While her birth symbolized hope and continuity, it also underscored the vulnerability of the colony as families attempted to survive in an unfamiliar and demanding environment. From the beginning, the colony faced serious challenges. Food shortages emerged quickly, and access to fresh supplies was unreliable. Relations with local Native American groups were strained, in part due to earlier conflicts involving previous English expeditions. These tensions limited trade opportunities and increased the settlers' dependence on support from England. As resources dwindled and uncertainty grew, it became clear that the colony could not sustain itself without immediate assistance. These mounting pressures set the stage for John White's decision to return to England, a decision that would profoundly shape the fate of the Roanoke colony. The survival of Roanoke colony depended heavily on supplies from England. Food was limited, equipment was scarce, and relations with nearby Native American groups had become increasingly uncertain. In response to these difficulties, Governor John White made the decision to return to England to request reinforcements and provisions. This choice, while risky, was based on necessity rather than abandonment. White's departure marked a critical turning point in the colony's history. Before leaving, he arranged a simple system of signals with the settlers. If they were forced to leave Roanoke Island, they were instructed to carve the name of their destination. If they departed under threat or danger, they were to add a specific distress symbol. These instructions would later play an important role in how historians interpret what followed. What White could not foresee were the events unfolding in Europe. England soon became fully engaged in a major conflict with Spain, culminating in the threat of the Spanish Armada. As a result, ships were redirected for military defense, and civilian voyages across the Atlantic were delayed or cancelled. White remained in England far longer than he intended, unable to secure passage back to Roanoke. The delay lasted nearly 3 years. During this time, there were no messages from the colony and no confirmation of its condition. It is important to emphasize that this absence of communication was not unusual for the period, given the limitations of transatlantic travel and navigation. When White finally obtained passage and returned to Roanoke in 1590, the extended delay had already sealed the colony's fate, whatever that fate may have been. His absence, caused by forces beyond his control, remains one of the most significant factors in the unresolved story of Roanoke. Historical records indicate that no human remains were discovered at the site. There were no clear signs of battle, no evidence of fire, and no immediate indication of a violent attack. The wooden structures of the settlement had been taken down rather than destroyed, suggesting an organized departure rather than sudden flight. However, the exact circumstances surrounding this abandonment remain unclear. One of the most significant findings was a single word carved into a wooden post: CROATOAN. This word referred to a nearby island and to a local Native American group known to the English. According to prior arrangements made before White's departure, the settlers were instructed to leave a clear sign if they relocated voluntarily. They were also instructed to carve a specific distress symbol if they left under threat. No such distress symbol was found at Roanoke. Environmental conditions may have contributed to the state of the settlement. Storm damage was visible, and parts of the fortifications had deteriorated over time. These factors complicate interpretation, as natural decay can obscure or erase physical evidence. What remains most striking is not what was found, but what was absent. There were no graves, no personal belongings scattered in haste, and no written messages explaining the settlers' fate. The lack of definitive clues has prevented historians from reaching a single, conclusive explanation. As a result, the disappearance of the Roanoke settlers remains an unresolved historical event, defined more by uncertainty than by answers, and remembered through the quiet traces left behind. The fate of the Roanoke colony has puzzled historians for centuries, and many hypotheses have been proposed to explain the mysterious disappearance of the settlers. One possibility is that the colonists voluntarily relocated to nearby CROATOAN Island, following the instructions left by Governor John White before his departure. The word CROATOAN, carved into a wooden post, has long fueled this theory, suggesting a planned move rather than a violent end. Another theory considers the potential integration with local Native American tribes. Some historians suggest that the settlers may have joined nearby communities for survival, blending into the indigenous population over time. While this could explain the lack of bodies or battle signs, there is no definitive archaeological evidence to confirm such integration. Other hypotheses focus on environmental and survival challenges. Disease, famine, or harsh conditions could have forced the colony to disband, leading to the disappearance of families without leaving written records or identifiable remains. Storm damage and natural decay may have further obscured traces of their fate, making it even harder for modern researchers to determine what truly happened. Despite centuries of study, no single theory has been conclusively proven. Archaeological investigations have yielded intriguing clues, but none sufficient to establish certainty. The mystery of Roanoke endures, reminding us of the fragility of early colonial ventures and the limits of historical knowledge. These theories are presented cautiously, highlighting possibilities rather than claims. The ultimate fate of the Roanoke settlers remains unresolved, continuing to captivate scholars, storytellers, and anyone drawn to the enduring enigma of the first English colony in the New World.